Good morning, everybody. We are gathered here to discuss the topic of racism. A little bit of background on racism. It is a mindset or cultural standard that seeks to achieve unequal outcomes for people based on race.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yes, Owen Shop. Could you please tell me a little bit about racism?
History within the topic of racism can go really far back. It can stem all the way from the Aztec times, but also the biggest form seen in history is probably the Holocaust, where millions of Jewish people were brought into concentration camps and killed and tortured just for being Jewish. Now, the KKK. That's it.
Thank you, Owen. The Ku Klux Klan, or the KKK, is a hate group that has originated in the United States. It was founded in 1865 and has a history of promoting white supremacy, racism, and violence against African Americans and other minority groups. The KKK has gone through multiple waves of activity, with its influence of peaking in the 1920s. Today, the KKK is marginalized and controversial organization, condemned by most people for its hateful beliefs and actions.
Thank you, Jazia. Hey everyone, today we're diving deep into the end of history, exploring the era of segregation. This isn't just about dusty old textbooks, it's about real life impact. These laws had, and believe it or not, they still ripple through our society today. We'll unravel the Jim Crow laws that drew a stark line of division and how landmark decisions like Civil Rights Act of 1964 worked to erase the line.
Thank you, DeAndre. What are the long-term impacts of racism? Racism has long-lasting effects on individuals and society as a whole. It perpetuates inequality, discrimination, and social divisions. It can lead to system disadvantages and marginalized groups, limiting opportunities for education, employment, and healthcare. Racism also has physiological impacts, causing stress, trauma, and lower self-esteem. It hinders social cohesion and harmony, creating tension and conflict among different racial and ethnic groups. Overcoming racism requires collective efforts to promote equality, understanding, and respect for all individuals, regardless of their race or ethnicity.
Police brutality is sometimes used to refer to various human rights violations by police. This might include beatings, racial abuse, unlawful killings, torture, and indiscriminate use of riot control agents at protests. What makes this novel so compelling is the way Star negotiates the relatively safe world of school, where she assimilates despite the soft racism of one or two so-called friends, and how she navigates the dangers of her own neighborhood, where it's not uncommon to be caught in the crossfire of rival gangs. There's a chilling scene where Star witnesses a police officer force her father to lie on the ground as he searches him. 16-year-old Star is led to a apparent safety by her friend Khalil. Shortly after, their car is pulled over by a police officer. The unarmed Khalil is murdered, shot at point-blank range by the man Star refers to from this moment on as Officer 115. Star is the only witness to the crime, and her 16-year-old shoulders have to bear the ferocious outrage of her racing community. These social issues are frequently committed against racial and ethnic minorities and Black communities. Last year, 290 people killed by police were Black, making up 23.5% of victims, while Black Americans make up roughly 14% of the total population. 15% of civilians who experience police threat of or use of force during legal interventions are injured. An estimated 250,000 civilian injuries are caused by law enforcement officers annually. More than 600 people are killed by law enforcement in the U.S. each year. Nathan, why do you think that is? Who do you think is affected or influenced by racism in our culture?
Thank you, Alyse. Of course, we know there are people who are influenced by racism. Some of these people include Black people, of course, given their history in relation to white oppression. In other parts of the world, white people are also discriminated against, such as in Asia or China, or even Africa specifically, where the proportion of Black people to white people flips, such as it is in America, and similar types of oppression go on over there. Jackson, do you think you could tell me more about the cultural differences of stuff?
I can try, man. In total, racism as a whole is full of cultural differences entirely. And racism could be viewed as a culture on its own through the fact that racism has changed since it was first introduced, as all culture changes. For example, there were times where white Americans and white British folk would describe people just by the color of their skin. It would change though. Sometimes if you were lighter skinned, you would be classified as white. And other times, as time passes, those definitions of people change, whereas a light-skinned person would then be colored. It's weird. Racism can be broken down into categories like cultural racism, whereas one would feel prejudice against another, not just for their skin, but also for the identity that a person holds and what they believe. What would you classify your beliefs as, Jazia? What do you believe in, and how do you identify? Like, do you feel anyone dislikes you because of the way you feel? Because if so, that's a them problem. Take it away, dude.
Societal norms for all people should be stretched far. Thank you, Jackson. Societal norms for all people should be stretched far away from even a possibility of racism. Simply put, racism does nothing good for anyone. As time moves on, more and more laws come into play, and many more issues appear, and we come closer together and then further apart as a community with all races. Within time, I hope to see a complete change with nobody thinking they're above anyone. Today, we have Miss Abeloren, who teaches at Reef Puffer High School. What kind of social norms do you see within the high school?
I think the most obvious places to see something that would be considered social norm would be at times where you're not forcing students to collaborate with one another, and just seeing how they gravitate. So in my senior classes and cafeterias, whenever I give my classes choices, is when this usually appears. And as a teacher in a predominantly white institution, there are certain things that you would attribute to race, as far as who you decide to collaborate with, who you gravitate to immediately, or I guess that would be over time too, because these are students who have been going to school with one another for probably years. It's similar to my experience when I was at Reese Puffer. There's certain,
Cliques, possibly.
yeah, groups, posses, cliques that form, and they form for various reasons, but I definitely think race would be among those reasons. Other ones would be like communities that they belong to, such as sports, fine arts, other interests outside of that, but across the board in the multitude of schools that I've not taught at, but substitute taught at, it's been pretty much the same type of rhythm.
Thank you. We that's all the time we have for you today.
Thank you.
But yeah, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
There are many solutions to solve the problem of racism in your area. It's not possible everywhere, but the best you can do is to take action to stop the violence and discrimination happening in your immediate vicinity. Other people have made big changes for others because of racism, such as Daryl Davis, a popular author among black people. He ended up helping 200 Ku Klux Klan members hang up their robes and give up their racist pursuits in exchange for absolute friendship. Sure, some people in the KKK have committed heinous acts, but sometimes you need to forgive and forget by helping others see that there is no need to feel anger or hatred against someone just because of what you've heard. Forgive your enemies, but remember your names. Words of John F. Kennedy. People are people. Other things you could do would be to go around and protest against racism. If anything, it's up to you and what you can do. What you can do to help. What you can do to do anything.